Welcome to Open Minds Radio with Alejandro Rojas. Open Minds Radio is your UFO news authority, presenting evidence and the latest news regarding the UFO phenomenon. Here's your host, Alejandro Rojas.
Hola, mis amigos. Es Alejandro de Open Minds Radio. That's for Steve Murillo out there. He's always trying to speak Spanish to me. I tell him, man, I don't know Spanish. Sorry. That was probably 50% of my Spanish right there. Anyway, speaking of another Spanish speaker, I have some very sad news. If you haven't seen this, our last guest, literally last week, Gabe Valdez, has unfortunately passed away. Saturday night, overnight, I guess he passed in his sleep. And that's all the information that we have right now. So it's very sad because, of course, I thought he was a great guy. I was excited because on the last show he invited me to come visit him. And I have been wanting to interview him for quite some time. So it's wonderful that I got the opportunity before he passed. And in order to keep up on what's going on and get more details, we're lucky to have on the show today Norio Hayakawa, and he actually is a Dulce investigator, and he's kind of been the lead on that. You may recall that we had some of our guys go to the Wake Up conference, Wake Up Now conference in Albuquerque, and that was ran by Norio, and luckily that is when we were able to meet Gabe Valdez. Actually, our video producer, Tom Ruffin, was able to interview him and to talk to him there, and we have an interview up on YouTube. And then luckily he was able to get me in contact with him also, and we were able to get him on the radio show for last week, which is great because he was, as you heard, such an important part of everything that went on with cattle mutilation investigation. Being a New Mexico State Patrol officer, I mean, he was, for the area, he was in the prime position to do all of that. So Norio, who's very familiar, of course, with Gabe Valdez and everything going on there, and also a friend of his and keeping up to date with the family, is going to be on the show and to tell us all about that, so we can reminisce and talk about what a great guy Valdez was and his work, and what Norio feels about his work, having done conferences on Dulce. So I'm really, it's great that I was able to speak to Norio, because I've followed his work and seen what he's done for many years, and I've got to kind of say hi to him as we've crossed paths here and there, but we've never really got to talk. So it was a treat for both of us to finally be able to sit down and talk. It's unfortunate that it was under these circumstances. So very surreal, of course, to have kind of our last guest, who was on just a week ago, to no longer be with us. But I feel, very privileged to have had him. And of course, what's interesting is I saw Shirley MacLaine, and this is probably a rerun, on Oprah. And I agree with her aspect on some of course, she's got some pretty wild ideas and stuff. But she says one of the things she does is she doesn't go to funerals. Now I would go to the funeral, but like she says she goes to funerals for the living, because it's not for the dead. It's, I think, a positive thing. I always feel very positive that they've been able to move on, and they're probably moving on to bigger and better. But it's, of course, very difficult for those of us left behind. And I've had some very close people pass away to me also, and it's always a hard thing because you miss them so much, no matter how positive you think their passing may have been, that they're moving on to do better. And, of course, then you feel that they're always with you. And I really, to be able to get Norio on today, I was hoping we would be able to do that, but I hadn't really even thought of that till my way to work. And I thought, it would be impossible to make it happen, but I tried my hardest, and then he got in touch with us, and he had the time. And so it's kind of, the timing is absolutely amazing. And I think maybe, Gabe had some hand in that in helping us get together so we could talk about his work on the air today. Anyway, so we have a very special show today, and we'll be talking to Norio later today. You can also read a memorial that I put online at the website at openminds.tv. It's on the front page there with some great pictures of Gabe that we were able to get, which I'm happy about that too, because there's not a lot of pictures of him out there. There's a screenshot from a thing on him on the History Channel. Greg Bishop, who we'll be talking about, who we had on the show, wrote the book Project Beta, which included Gabe Valdez. He's got a picture of him with Gabe Valdez, which is a great picture. But that's about all that's out there. So it's great to be able to contribute and get some more images, some great images of him out there so people can continue to remember him. So that's what we've got in store today. However, as usual, we have every day new news on UFO headlines throughout the country. And we've got our good friend and super genius, Jason McClellan, here with us to tell us about the news of the week. Jay McClellan, super genius. What do you got for us?
Yo, you want your UFO news? I got your UFO news right here.
Come on, don't pretend like you're...
Well, I have a mohawk, so I must be from Brooklyn. Or I guess I'm required to be from Brooklyn to have a mohawk.
Does the mohawk, and maybe this is what you're trying to tell me here, reduce your IQ during the period that you have the mohawk?
I think the jury's still out on that one.
No,
Perhaps it has, and that's why I can't answer you.
Maybe.
Well, let's do news, Alejandro. This
Let's
is
do
your
it.
UFO news brief for Monday, August 8th, 2011. A family in El Cajon, California, saw strange lights in the sky on the night of Sunday, May 31st. Todd Gibson was walking his dogs just before 10 p.m. when he noticed the UFO. He described the object as having two bright orange and white lights. He further explained, "I've seen planes, I've seen satellites. There's always tiny blinking lights. There wasn't anything like that with this. It was solid, one color the entire time." And that's according to KFMB-TV, the local CBS affiliate. Todd's wife, Stacy, recorded the lights with the family's video camera, and they watched the object moving through the sky for 5 minutes before it suddenly disappeared. KFMB-TV reports that the FAA had no idea what the mysterious lights were.
Yeah. Some interesting sightings that we've had lately.
Yeah, and, this is sort of the common thing with the FAA. These lights happen in the sky, and they have nothing on radar, so they're no help.
Yeah. And the problem is, of course, we found where they say they have nothing, and then someone does a Freedom of Information Act request, and lo and behold, oops, we did have something.
Where did these radar images come from?
Yeah.
Yep. And that's interesting. I drive through El Cajon all the time, coming back from San Diego.
Oh, really?
And it's fun to look at the sky. I always look at the sky on my drive.
Beautiful sky out there?
I always see, lots of sky, and you always see lights in the sky.
Yeah, I went to Grand Canyon, and on the way back, saw not the biggest one I've ever seen, but a really big shooting star meteorite going through the sky.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom was with me, and she was really floored. She's like, "Oh my gosh, what was that?" And she had never seen one that big. But I'm watching the sky, especially at night, all the time. So I've seen some really cool stuff, especially on the way to my house out through the desert.
I bet.
Mm-hmm.
You've got great sky out by your place.
Yep.
Here's another story about something in the sky. And this was big news. It's still big news this week. But a BBC journalist spotted a UFO on his way to the airport last Wednesday morning. Mike Sewell, a well-respected sports reporter on Radio 5 Live, was totally freaked out after seeing a bright light descend toward the road in which he was driving. I don't blame this guy. I'd be freaked out if something big in the sky was zooming towards me.
I'd be excited.
It'd be awesome, but at the same time, you don't know what it's going to do, if it's going to crash into you or if it's coming after you.
Don't be a wuss. I'd be like,
look,
yeah.
I get excited. I've seen it before, but when it starts coming at you, you're all, uh-oh. Should I stay here with my mouth open and get my camera out and have fun, or should I run?
Get the camera.
I agree. He described the UFO as disc-shaped, and he was actually pretty embarrassed to admit that. But he said it was disc-shaped. And he said it had several lights flashing all around it, and underneath there were at least 2 large panel lights, soft white lights underneath. And that's according to The Sun. The UFO hovered over a field, and Swell was able to see the craft for 2 to 3 minutes before losing sight of it. UFO researcher Timothy Good commented on the sighting, stating, "Clearly this is not a conventional aircraft of any type." Good offered his opinion that the UFO could have been secret military aircraft, but he also stated it might well be extraterrestrial. Swell is confident that what he saw was not an airplane or a helicopter. And the cool thing is that this guy, this radio personality who is well known, it was either the same day or the following day, he did a radio interview explaining his sighting.
Yeah.
And, it was funny to hear him. And that's how we hear a lot of sightings reported, people talking through it. And they're not really believers, if you want to call them that. But after they see these things, they're so floored and they can't believe it themselves. And this guy did the same thing when he was describing it. He saw, I hate to say it, but it was disc-shaped. I can't describe it any other way. That's what it was. It was a disc. It was not an airplane.
Yeah, very cool that he was brave enough to come forward to talk about it, even though, like you said, he was embarrassed about what he saw. And it made big news, I think, especially because the media likes when other media, have an experience, and especially because there's access to this guy. He talked to different people, and even better, he did that radio show where you can hear him talking about it, and that's up there. It's up there. I know I tweeted it at Paranormal RPTR, which is my tweet, Paranormal RPTR, where I tweeted some of the stuff because I was gone last week. So, and then our website was froze for a couple of days while we were doing some maintenance. So, but I'm sure we have the link on our site where you can hear that too, huh?
Yes, we do. And also, he is, or at least was, actively looking for other witnesses, because he says he saw this while he was driving down the road, and he was trying not to steer off the road because he said it was a small country road. But he did say there was like a VW bus or something in front of him, and he said they must have seen it too. So he even said on the air that, he'd love to talk to the person who was in that vehicle to see if they saw the same thing.
And I so far haven't heard that person's come forward.
No.
But that's a pretty incredible sighting. And, it sounds similar. And I even think Michael Schratt has done, where he does on our website images of these UFOs. I'm positive, and I should look it up, that something very similar has been reported before, with a couple panels on the bottom with a softer light,
right,
a disc-shaped object with lights around the rim. And
this is perhaps stereotyping a little bit, but the first thing I thought of when I heard this story and heard this disc-shaped thing hovering over the field with its lights, I thought, well, he should check if there's a crop circle there. Maybe it was making a crop circle because they just hovered over this field.
Yep.
But that, again, is stereotyping, assuming that because
you're making a lot of assumptions here.
In the UK, it's got to be crop
Who knows,
circles.
though? It's crop circle season.
I know. That'd be cool.
You never know. That'd be incredible.
But that was a great sighting. And we've got another sighting here that's a little closer to our home here in Arizona. Michael Baca, a 20-year-old resident of Kingman, Arizona, photographed a series of lights in the night sky on Thursday, August 4th. He followed the lights into the desert where several other people had already gathered to watch the strange lights. Baca observed the lights for more than an hour or so as they danced across the sky. He was able to take photographs and record video with his iPhone 4. He said the lights weren't zooming, but rather he described they were methodical in their movement. According to the Daily Miner, Baca forwarded his photos to local historian Rob Chilcote of the Kingman Army Airfield Museum, who upon seeing the photos was immediately reminded of the Phoenix Lights incident of 1997. After reviewing the photos, Chilcote said the Kingman Lights could have been from an F-22 or F-35, but he further stated that those aircraft would have created audible jet noise, and according to Baca, whatever he photographed Thursday night was completely silent. The sighting was reported to the National UFO Reporting Center, and there's no word yet on how many people observed this series of dancing lights above Kingman. But it's interesting that there was already a group of people gathered to watch these lights when this guy followed them into the desert. But have you seen these pictures?
I've seen the pictures because the video didn't he say he took video?
He did say he took video, but the newspaper, the Kingman newspaper, didn't have any of that video.
Yeah, and the pictures were really interesting. I mean, this is one of those, when you have pictures, you have to go off of witness testimony that and trust that the lights were in the area that he talked about, of course, or something. But yeah, you have these 2 rows of lights up in the sky at night, very mysterious, and depending on if the thing seems to be very large, if it was one object.
Right. And, he says it was an iPhone 4, and there are so many different camera apps for the iPhone 4 to do different things. You can control shutter speed and things like that. So, with multiple lights in the sky, you think, it could be some sort of delay, and those are blinking lights.
Yeah.
But they don't seem to be in the same place or...
Well, and the camera movement, they have a blur effect where they're streaking,
right,
and they're all streaking together, which would show that they were probably all in one position when he took the picture.
Right.
Of course, it could be like lights inside of a house, a row of lights that he has on the ceiling of his kitchen or something like that.
Sure.
When it's dark out. But if it was really outside, of course, that's what would be incredible.
Right.
That'd be great.
Yeah, they look pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
So there have been quite a few UFO sightings in Australia's Northern Territory lately, and a man from the town of Katherine was able to photograph one of these UFOs. This man, David Schumann, was having dinner with his boss when they noticed an unusually large star that hovered in the sky for 20 minutes. Schumann stepped outside to snap pictures of the unusual object, and he described a real glowing about the object as it was very bright. And the object suddenly moved towards him as he was taking the photos. Then, Schumann described, suddenly the bugger started to change shape, then it swung out wide to my far right, ducking beyond the trees. He also described the object changing color and apparently separating before it disappeared. So those are some wild descriptions there. And for his sake, it's fortunate that he was with his boss and he didn't tell his boss that later, because he'd probably get fired. But,
yeah.
But his boss is the one who first saw it and pointed it out, because they were inside eating, and then he went out to take the photos.
And this one has one picture, right?
Yes, it does.
And it's kind of a bright light. It's hard to make anything out.
It's kind of greenish and weird. You can't really tell what's going on in it.
Yeah. Yeah, unfortunately, that's the problem with night.
But yeah, it's a
Pictures of
bizarre
bright
photo.
lights.
You can't really make anything out.
Yeah.
But the description by itself is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
So. Well, here's some cool news, Alejandro. I know you love space news, and really exciting space news from last week. So first of all, scientists claim to have discovered the oxygen molecule for the first time ever in deep space. Small signatures of molecular oxygen were detected in the star-forming complex of the constellation Orion by the Herschel telescope. The Huffington Post points out that oxygen is the third most abundant element in the universe, but until now, the molecular form of oxygen has never been found outside of Earth. Similarly, in their recent press release, NASA stated individual atoms of oxygen are common in space, particularly around massive stars. But molecular oxygen, which makes up about 20% of the air we breathe, has eluded astronomers until now. The detection of molecular oxygen in space lends support to the notion that life as we know it could exist elsewhere in the universe. The details of the Herschel telescope find were published in the Astrophysical Journal. And again, Alejandro, while we've commented before about how it's not really closed-minded, but the narrow approach of NASA and a lot of mainstream scientists is to solely look for life as we know it. And it's understandable. I mean, that's all we know. But, this is something that opens the door for them to say, oh, look, the things we know point to the possibility of things elsewhere. We talked about this before with the discoveries from last year with life existing in harsh environments and arsenic environments and things like that. That was new and opened their eyes to looking to places we don't normally look, things that aren't Earth-like. But now discovering oxygen, the type of oxygen we breathe, molecular oxygen, that hopefully means that they're not wasting their time.
I think it's, I didn't read the oxygen one until I got here, actually, and saw yours. For some reason, I missed that. But that's so wild. I mean, it's
Well, we've mentioned this, too, before with many space news stories. Things like this that are absolutely huge sometimes don't get very much attention.
Mm-hmm. But I think it's just so wild discovery after discovery of that indicate there has to be life everywhere.
Well, let's talk about this other story.
Yeah.
That
I'm
happened
trying not to mention it.
also next week. That happened the day after that. NASA issued a press release on Thursday announcing a major discovery on Mars. Data collected by the Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, the MRO, suggests there could be flowing water on Mars during the warmest months on the planet. According to the press release, images provided by the MRO show dark, finger-like figures that appear and extend down some Martian slopes during late spring through summer, fade in winter, and return during the next spring. Alfred McEwen of the University of Arizona explains, the best explanation for these observations so far is the flow of briny water. In our previous story we just mentioned, discovery of molecular oxygen in space, and now with the possibility of flowing water on Mars, the likelihood of discovering life as we know it in other parts of the universe continues to grow. And according to NASA Administrator Charles Bolden, NASA's Mars exploration program keeps bringing us closer to determining whether the red planet could harbor life in some form, and it reaffirms Mars as an important future destination for human exploration. And a detailed report of those findings is in last week's edition of Science.
Uh-huh. You know, when the Mars Explorer, I think it was called, or, you know, those last satellites that went out and took pictures, which were years ago, they took pictures, and a lot of them looked like water.
Right.
Some of them looked like deep bodies of water. There were a couple pictures that very much looked like water in a spring, like gushing out of a side of a cliff. And at that time, which is probably had to have been 5, 6, maybe 10 years ago, I made a bet with my stepdad and that there was water on Mars. And this, at the time, the European Space Agency was saying that they had found water, and it was they found it in the atmosphere. But NASA, being, you know, the kind of pig-headed people they can be sometimes, were like, oh, you know, they weren't even acknowledging the European Space Agency. It took them 1 or 2 years to acknowledge that, oh yeah, I think we have found water in the atmosphere. Or the Europeans, or the British had already shown that. But I made a bet with my dad, or stepdad, that there was water on Mars. So when that happened, and NASA, he wouldn't listen to Europe, you know, it's got to be NASA. So when NASA admitted it, I said, well, did you see NASA finally admitted there's water? And he said, no, you said there was standing water. So I said, okay.
He'll always
I'll
fight
take
you on
that
it.
bet.
He'll always fight you on it.
Yeah, and I said, okay, we can change the bet if you want. But now, I mean, the discovery of standing water, and they say, people were saying, oh, it's too cold out there. But what they're saying is, during a period of time,
Right.
it's warm enough, and the salt water doesn't freeze as quickly as regular water, so that there is probably standing water. And that, like you said, the changing in the erosion shows that there's probably some flowing water there. Absolutely amazing. I mean, and who knows? I mean, just like our oceans here, they don't all freeze. The top freezes, but not the entire thing.
And you make a good point, too, about previous discoveries that have been made, previous studies, previous missions. There have been several that have detected indicators that could possibly lead to water on Mars. But this, so far, NASA feels is their strongest proof.
Yeah.
So
I wish, and I can understand being careful of speculation.
Right.
Because, of course, you want to prove that there's something there before you really come out and talk about it. But it would be cool if they can at least, you know, acknowledge. And it'll put to bed a lot of conspiracy stuff, too. If they could say, you know, there are several pictures that look like it could be water. Some of these even look like they could be standing bodies of water. But they also could be other things. So we don't know yet. You know, we're going to look into it. But even making those statements makes them a friendlier, and plus it creates more excitement, like, wow, NASA says there could be water. And I think it would help their funding. It would help, especially right now, when they're struggling and they seem, well, and they've had this problem for a long time where they seem stagnant when they're really not, because they're not telling us what they're doing.
Right. I think they like the controversy, Alejandro.
Yeah,
they like
maybe.
conspiracy. They like controversy.
They're engineers and stuff, so they like to be stubborn, just like my stepdad, who is a wildlife biologist. He's just like those guys, like to be stubborn and to argue, and they need good PR.
They do, because they've got a lot of good news coming out.
I know, and exciting stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, why don't they tell us when they're going to go do some of these exciting things, like going to the asteroids and stuff? You know, you don't really hear about that until
They do tell us, but
launch.
yes, you're right. They do need better PR.
Yeah,
because
you don't
unless
hear
you look
about it.
for it, you don't know
Exactly.
about it. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, Alejandro, that is it for the news. Remember to check out all of these stories we talked about and a lot more stories at openminds.tv, your source for UFO-related news. I'm Jason McClellan, the UFO news guy, and you've been briefed. Back to you, Alejandro.
Thank you, Jason. Interesting news out of Oklahoma that I'm reading here in the chat, which is kind of scary. According to our good buddy Dan, who loves it when I talk about him, luckily he's still listening because usually he has to go change some diapers or something when I talk about him. But he works at a weather station. I forget exactly what it is. He'll probably tell me in a second. But he says that they have had out there the hottest average temperature ever. Like they broke their highest. It's been hotter than ever out there, which is really kind of freaky. I mean, hottest in history. And he also said they had their coldest temperature ever recorded in Oklahoma also this year, which was -30. So they've had their hottest temperatures and their coldest temperatures. That is scary. What is going on, people? So maybe it has to do with some of what NASA could be looking at, and that is weather and space weather and weather on other planets, and very interesting stuff. Thank you, Dan. A couple things from the website, just like we talked about. We talked about the Kingman photo, the water on Mars, the breathable oxygen, and of course Valdez and his memorial. Also the BBC reporter. All of that stuff is up at our website, openminds.tv. So if you want more information on that, go check that out. Like I said, you can also tweet, follow Paranormal RPTR, and follow all of that stuff too. So cool stuff. Speaking of cool stuff, I was going to say very excited. I can't help but say very excited about Norio. And of course, Norio is, he's one of the people I've wanted to have on the show for quite a while, so the timing just happened great today. And there are so many people that I want to have on the show and I'm going to have on the show that you haven't heard yet, or at least I haven't had on the show before. It's just wonderful that there's this endless amount of people doing work in this field that are very interesting to talk to. So I'm really happy to have Norio on for the first time. And I'm really happy that together, we can join in honoring the memory of Gabe Valdez, a very important person in this field. And hopefully together we can make sure that people don't forget him and his work. So without further ado, let us get Norio on the line.
All right. Well, I am very lucky that things have aligned. The heavens have aligned, and maybe we've got some help from our friend Gabe Valdez, but I was able to get Norio Hayakawa on the show today. Norio, how are you? Norio.
Oh, yes. How are you, Alejandro? I'm sure you're aware of the passing away of Gabe Valdez.
Yes. Very shocking and sad. I mean, I was really, after talking to him last week, and it was a lot of fun, and I really wanted to meet him. I love Albuquerque. I've been there a lot, and I was, flattered and honored that he asked me to come see him if I was in town, and I guess, unfortunately, I won't get that opportunity.
Yes, and I highly commend you, Alejandro, for interviewing Gabe in depth, last week, and I think no question about it that your interview was the most in-depth interview, that I heard.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much for getting us in contact with him. I've wanted to interview him for a long time because I'm so interested in the subject, and even though it was a short interview, it was only like 40 minutes, his answers are kind of short, and I'm used to, his demeanor since it's very similar to Native Americans and other, New Mexicans in that area. But his answers were so short, I was able to get a lot of questions in. So
exactly,
cover
and
a
that's
lot of
why I
ground.
think your interview was very historical, and I commend you for that, because it's a historical document, this interview that you just had with him a week ago, and I think this is no question about the last interview that anybody ever did with Gabe.
Yeah, well,
as far as I know.
Yeah, I think that, some of these people and these things that have happened are so important that we need to document them and keep them in front of the public so people don't forget things like Gabe Valdez. Maybe some people don't want to hear that the government's doing cattle mutilations or there aren't UFOs or aliens under in Dulce. But, he's a state patrol officer. He's someone who's very capable of doing investigations, lives in the area, done the investigations for years. It's important information.
Yes, in a way, Gabe is a very, very amazing person. Yes, his answers are very short, but that's his personality.
Yeah.
Very short and precise. And he doesn't say any extra things. He just gets right to the point and answers the question in a very simple, short words. And so, but if you meet him in person, he's a very, very likable person. I mean, he is very kind, and soft-spoken, but he has a lot of humor too.
When did you first?
I think that he is a legend. He has become a legend, so much so that when one talks about the Dulce base, his name has to come up.
Right.
And I think he's the central figure in all of this, rumors about the, alleged underground base at Dulce, New Mexico. So without Paul Benowitz and without Gabe Valdez, there is no Dulce.
Right. How did you first meet Gabe Valdez?
Well, actually, I knew him for many years, but actually, in 2009, remember that I held the first time ever underground base conference in Dulce, New Mexico, which nobody had done it before. That place, Dulce, being part of the Hickory Apache Reservation, and for an outsider to come to Dulce and to start having a conference about underground base was unheard of.
Right.
But I was afraid of it. But fortunately, the cultural affairs office person in Dulce said it's okay to have a conference, because she herself even told me on the phone that there are lots of things about Dulce that she doesn't want to talk with me.
Wow.
But she was glad that I decided to have a conference. And Gabe Valdez came to my house, just before the conference. In fact, he initially was kind of hesitant about me having a conference over there. But anyway, he came to our house, and he talked about Dulce too, because we had a little meeting here at our house, before the conference, and I invited Gabe Valdez, who lives not too far from me. He lives in Albuquerque, but I live in Rio Rancho, but the part in Albuquerque he lives in is not too far away from Rio Rancho. But that was the first time I ever met him in person, and I just found him to be such a likable guy.
Yeah, and he always, even, the other interview I saw him on was with the Sci-Fi Channel, Sci-Fi Investigates, with Richard Dolan was hosting it, and he was doing the interview. It was a great interview. I thought Richard did a great job. And even in that, he, just like you said with you, he's hesitant about talking about this stuff. Just like he was hesitant of you having the conference. Do you think he feared that you might get harassed by somebody?
No, I think he was just concerned that, of an outsider like I having a conference in an Indian reservation.
Oh.
But once the conference was actually Gabe Valdez came himself to the conference, and he answered a few questions at the conference, and and so I think overall he accepted the fact that this conference was pretty important, and so he participated in the conference along with some other, in fact many other local people. And that place was filled up with people in Dulce in 2009. It was in March that the conference was held. But, as far as Gabe Valdez is concerned, I think he's a very open-minded person. He doesn't come to any dogmatic statements because he's an investigator, and he goes by the step-by-step empirical process and thinking, and but he believes, and he has believed this for a long, long time, that whatever happened in Dulce was, basically part of some kind of a psychological operation, manipulation of beliefs, of some kind by the military. And he was a brave guy because he was he had a high regard for his authority because he was the authority in criminal investigations in the Dulce area, and not any military, because as you heard in the interview, he actually had a confrontation with some people from the Delta Force.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite stories. I first heard that story actually from in Greg Bishop's book Project Beta, where I guess everybody was real freaked out, and they're like, we got to get out of here. There's black helicopters, and he just jumped out of the helicopter they're in and ran over to the helicopter and jumped in and said, what the hell are you guys doing?
Yes, and he showed his badge, and he said, you have no right to be here.
Yeah, pretty brave.
And so that's the kind of person Gabe Valdez was. And so we definitely lost one of the most significant persons when it comes to Dulce, New Mexico, and he took with him, unfortunately, upon his passing, some real secrets that probably he never told the public yet.
Right, because one of the things he claimed, which I thought was interesting, was that he knew probably who this was that was doing these experiments, but he wouldn't share who that was. Do you have any idea who he might have suspected?
Well, I have no, it's a big question. Of course, he insinuates that it's the government, the U.S. government, and part of the U.S. government that has been conducting this kind of operations and programs in the Dulce area since around the mid-1970s. And actually, he also believed, just like I did, and I still do, that a lot of these things that took place in Dulce, New Mexico, actually had its origin in a strange incident that took place in 1967 near Dulce, and that was the United States testing of atomic or nuclear device underground, only about 22 miles southwest of Dulce in 1967.
Right. I had talked with him a little bit about that before, but didn't really get into it in our interview, but and I wasn't clear on, and perhaps you can clear this up. Gas Buggy, I think, is what you're talking about. The name of the location.
Yes.
How do you feel that is related to the Dulce mythology?
Well, it was a very important incident that took place in December of 1967, and the incident was the explosion of atomic device underground, about 1.5 miles underground, southwest of Dulce, and that was called the Project Gas Buggy, and it was conducted under the supervision of Atomic Energy Commission, AEC, and it was part of the post-World War II U.S. program that was called Atom for Peace Use, and this was only 2 underground explosions that they experimented aside from Nevada test site. New Mexico was the only place, and they had 2 underground explosions after World War II in the state of New Mexico, and one was near Carlsbad. I think this was around 1950 or so, but the other one was near Dulce in 1967. And this is very important because the Atomic Energy Commission informed the local residents in 1967 that they're going to explode an atomic device for the purpose of releasing the flow of natural gas, which was entrapped in hard rocks underground in that area. And so that was the main reason, according to the Atomic Energy Commission, and they informed the residents of that area in Dulce and Aztec and Farmington and all these communities near there. And indeed, in December, I forgot the exact date, a lot of people in Farmington and all these areas experienced rumbling and shaking, like an earthquake. And but anyway, the United States government told the people that this is for their benefit to release the natural gas so that they can take advantage of these natural gas. But they knew darn well from the very beginning that such atomic explosion in that area could have dangerous consequences. And, well, indeed, it became apparent that in the 70s, some radiation may have slowly leaked in that area and have caused some effect on animals and, such as cows in that area. And so it is my opinion that the U.S. began to test and monitor the level of radiation in that area. And so I don't know exactly how this may be related to cattle mutilations or, things like that. But Gabe Valdez also seemed to believe that Dulce is, that a lot of things have been going in Dulce. In other words, I'm just assuming that his conclusion is that there's something about biological warfare research in that area going on. But, because in 1945, Los Alamos actually attempted to dump nuclear waste materials in that area. And, but not only that, but any other toxic substance could have been dispersed near that area, and, the reservation may have, tried to cooperate with whatever agency, and So, the fact of the matter is that there seem to have been high rates of cancer in that area too, and then problems with fertility among women there.
That's right. So I think his theory was, which is not too unsound, because there is some relating stuff that about that we'll get into that kind of supports this, is that in order to cover up that there was radiation affecting residents in the Dulce area, they were taking the cattle to test if that was happening, and then returning them in the state they were in. Part of Valdez's theory, I think, is that in order to make people think aliens were taking the cows so that they wouldn't think the government was stealing them, because the government didn't want people to know that people were being affected by the radiation from gas buggy.
Yeah, I think that's one of the possible theory that Gabe might have had. But the basic line, the bottom line is this, that Gabe Valdez believes, and I also believe this, that many of these so-called UFO sightings and other, incidents were staged by the military, by the use of possibly, holographic projections and, other devices, such as the prototypes of unmanned aerial vehicles that may have been developed by Sandia Corporation in already in the late 70s, and as part of the PSYOPs program. So anything is possible.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it kind of fits. One of the other characters in this play is Richard Dodie, because supposedly, he was giving Benowitz misinformation to throw Benowitz off the track because Benowitz was observing advanced human technology, and they wanted Benowitz to believe it was alien so that people wouldn't get wind of what was really going on, which fits along with Valdez's theory.
Yeah, because, I think the main purpose for Benowitz was that, as far as the Air Force was concerned, the Kirtland Air Force was Benowitz was getting too interested in the projects that were being conducted near Manzano, storage area, the Manzano Mountain, right next to where he was living.
Which used to house all of our nukes, or a lot of our nukes.
Yeah, that's the location where the U.S. had a lot of the nuclear materials stored underground in tunnels, in the Manzano area. But in order for the Air Force to convince Paul Benowitz not to pay attention to Kirtland, but rather to divert his attention away from Kirtland and create some kind of a imaginary location in northern New Mexico, so that his attention would be focused in northern New Mexico rather than Kirtland Air Force Base. That's one theory.
Yeah, although that's, I have been researching this area for a long time. In fact, I was very excited when I saw that you put together your conference in 2009, and I really wanted to go, and I can't remember why. It was some other event, because at the same time, I was hosting a lot of events in the Denver and Greeley and Fort Collins monthly meetings, and I think I had one on that weekend that I couldn't miss, and that's why I couldn't go. But I've kind of come to a similar feeling myself, that Dulce was a red herring, that essentially they were trying to make Benowitz, get him off the track of some other things he was looking into. I used to think maybe actual UFOs that they were throwing him off the track on. I don't believe that anymore. I believe it to be human technology they were trying to keep him away from. And that Dulce was a red herring, because otherwise, Dodie seemed so adamant about getting him to believe in this base. And in Greg Bishop's book, he talks about how they even staged things to make him believe that there was something in the Dulce area, that I've come to a similar feeling.
Yes, and the Dulce area has always been an ideal location for any kind of experiment, governmental, experiments, because it's in the jurisdiction of Native American, population, and in a sense, we're talking about some type of sovereignty, certain level of sovereignty that makes that location a convenient location to conduct anything,
Well, and also, I think if there are real underground bases, the mountains behind there is a great place. I mean, for instance, I'm in Phoenix, and even though Colorado's right next door, I can't drive straight to Denver because there's these humongous mountains in the area, the Guadalupe Range, for instance, and all of that in there. These mountains are so big that there are lots of areas, people can't get into.
Exactly.
Perfect place to, build a base that you can only get to through helicopters.
Exactly. And see, a lot of people, Alejandro, imagine that the Archuleta Mesa is a small mesa, but it's not. It's a humongous area, and the entire Archuleta Mesa, actually, in order to see the or drive through the circumference of the Archuleta Mesa, it takes about 2 hours.
Wow.
So it's a humongous mesa, and Archuleta Mountain is located in or on Archuleta Mesa, and it's located about, somewhat northwest in the mesa itself. And so there has been, a misunderstanding, because a lot of people have said that there's something in the Archuleta Mesa, but they're talking about actually Archuleta Mountain, which is northwest, but it's still on the mesa.
Really, I had that. I wasn't clear on that till Valdez told me.
Yes, and in fact, this is verified by the ranchers that live there, especially the Gomez family, and Edmund Gomez. He knows a lot about the Archuleta Mountain, because he and Gabe Valdez and others have been there a few times, and but it's a spacious area. But it just that even today, if you go to the road at the base of the Archuleta Mesa, you hardly see anybody there. It's a humongous place, and it's even possible for. I think it's possible for anyone to get lost in that area. But contrary to a lot of misinformation, it's one can actually start hiking in that area if but the only problem is that it takes hours and hours and hours, and who has that kind of time to investigate things like this?
Yeah.
And it's the Hickory Apache police usually don't patrol that area that much. So the problem is that with all this rumors about the base, there's no evidence of any the ventilation systems.
Right. Yeah, that's one thing I ran across. I used to get so excited because living in the area, knowing people in the area, I would ask around, and funny enough, when I asked Native Americans and Hickory Apaches, because I would meet them sometimes, I go to the powwows in the area and stuff, they never ever told me about actually seeing any events or anything like that. But some of the Anglo people would tell me, oh, they know an Apache, or they heard. But none of this ever panned out. Anybody I know who actually went there to look for these places or were told to look in a place and did go look, including Scott Ramsey, who I know you've had at your conference, they've never found anything.
That's right, because people have camped on the mesa, and they have not found anything physical. But that place is very huge. So but the biggest problem is there's no physical evidence yet, except a photo or two that was taken by Edmund Gomez of what could be anything. It could be, ventilation, but it looks rectangular, but it could just be opening in rocks, So, until we get the concrete evidence, everything is speculation.
Yeah.
But it's a brilliant, it's a good story and a good legend and folklore or lore. The whole Dulce, New Mexico, remains to be one of the most fascinating topics in ufology today.
Yeah.
It's more interesting than, Area 51 or even Roswell because, Roswell, yes, it was significant because it happened in 1947, but, nothing is happening now, see. But when you talk about Dulce, New Mexico, things are still happening, and it's accessible, over there. You can go over there. You cannot go to Area 51 and see the base unless you climb the a hill or 23 miles away. But Dulce is where anyone can go and to do some observation. But there's no physical structure or evidence that there's a base there. But regardless of that, the rumors continue to go on, and these rumors about the alleged existence of an underground base may be a convenient, cover story to conceal other things. It's a convenient.
Right. If you keep people in Dulce or in Archuleta Mesa, you keep people out of some of the other rumored areas that I've heard about. I know Chris O'Brien's done a lot of that work, some others of other rumored areas deeper within the hills, west of the Dulce area where there could possibly be something going on.
Yes. Like I said, Alejandro, I think the whole area is fascinating because it's part of the Native American area, and the Native American people, like the Hickory Apache people, have a deep, profound religious and cultural beliefs. And many of their beliefs almost is equivalent to, almost some kind of paranormal beliefs.
Yeah.
Because I heard, people talking about hearing, Native American chanting in the night when there's none, and they hear these chantings, and then of course the belief in things like Skinwalker and other legendary, things.
Yeah, the whole. San Luis Valley, and I almost kind of consider that area part of it because it's very close to it. I mean, it's just a little bit. You gotta. Well, if you're going from Colorado, you have to drive through the valley in order to get to Dulce, which is a beautiful area. But the whole mystery in that area, all of the incredible legends that date back for so long. Taos Pueblo is so important to the Native Americans there. They believe they came out of there or from the canyon there. Lots of different incredible stories.
Yes, no question about it. That's why, to me, this whole area could be an ideal location for governmental projects or experiments on psychological operations, of any kind, and because they know that the local people have deep beliefs in their spiritual aspects of things,
Yeah.
and but even including things like the reports of people hearing low humming sounds coming from the area is quite common. Even I think last December people reported hearing low humming sounds along the Navajo River northwest of Dulce, and then north of Dulce also as well. Pagosa Springs area too last year, and then of course this goes back to the Taos area too. Many years ago, people used to hear some low frequency hums.
Yeah.
Or some kind of hums.
Now, you pretty much are the Dulce guy. I mean, you've got the conference going on. It's a big focus for you. When did you start to become interested in it, and why?
Well, because I became interested in this whole thing because even though people in New Mexico was aware of the rumors about an underground base in the Dulce area in the early 80s. Actually, the whole Dulce rumors started around the 1979, 1980, that time period. But some people in New Mexico already knew about the rumors. But most people outside of New Mexico were not knowledgeable about it. But in 1988, I received a 10-page report from, of all persons, from John Lear. He personally sent me this 10-page report, and it was his hypothesis. And in that 10-page report in 1988, he mentioned Area 51 in Nevada and Dulce, New Mexico, as two of the most important places. And, that was in 1988 when most people never heard about Area 51 until Mr. Lazar came in 1989. So, but I got interested in Dulce in 1988 after seeing his report and his hypothesis. And then, ever since that time, I got in touch with this researcher by the name of Branton. And Branton used to write a lot of articles about the Dulce base. And he got most of the information from a mysterious, enigmatic person called Jason Bishop, or Tal Levesque. And Tal Levesque introduced me to John Lear, and and John Lear wrote to me in 1988. So, despite the reputation that John Lear may have in certain ufological circles, I think he had something going on, and by that time. So, that's how I got interested in Dulce. And then, realistically, in 1990, I visited Dulce with a Nippon television group, to interview people there. And so, so that was the reason. And, by 1990, in March, Nippon television station in Japan broadcast a 2-hour special program at prime time. That was in 1990, and the program was about Area 51 and Dulce. It's hard to believe because, at that time, a lot of people weren't paying too much attention to Area 51, much less Dulce in the United States.
I don't think people understand. I'm a big anime fan. I'm like, I watch the news. I'm in paranormal. And my third thing is anime. Those are the three things that I spend all my time on. And it's so interesting how ingrained the whole UFO
mythology is in the Japanese culture. I mean, Adamski, and even they use the Adamski UFO on all kinds of different shows, and they call it the Adamski UFO. They even know of Adamski, where people here don't even know much about
right.
Adamski.
That's right. Absolutely, because Japan had a lot of TV programs in the 70s and 80s about UFOs, and you know, even a researcher in Japan traveled to Switzerland, and I think in the 80s, and had a full 2-hour special program on, you know, Billy Meyer and so on, and you know, so a lot of Japanese people were used to this kind of programs about UFOs, and you know, it just was a very popular, very popular topic on documentary TV in Japan. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't just a documentary TV; it was just, you know, it was made very interestingly so that people would watch it. So,
well, there's an elaborate sequence on there, right, where they portray, they do a reenactment of tubes of liquid with kind of alien hybrids being created.
That's right. That's right. Because I think Japan had the Japanese were very skillful, the TV producers in animation and recreating, you know, sceneries. And so in that program in 1990, 2-hour program broadcast in Japan, they inserted a few clips that they made. It was actually a reanimation of the so-called Dulce underground, you know, base, and the tubes, you know, and then you see these what appears to be gray small aliens, you know, attached with tubes and in a tub and so on. It looked very real. Mm-hmm. But a lot of people thought that was the real footage.
Yeah, a lot of people still do.
Yes. A lot of people think that's the real footage, but that was just reanimation by the Japanese TV producers in the, you know.
Well, and I think people are shocked that, one, that there would be a documentary on this subject so long ago in Japan, and two, that it would be so well produced, it looks so great that it looks real.
That's true. You know, there's a guy, producer called Junichi Yaoi, who actually took a plane and flew over the Archuleta Mesa already in 1989. Mm-hmm. And he took Krista Tilton with him, and he took all the footages from the air of the Archuleta Mesa, and you know, that was already in 1989, before the other TV program, you know, started making this, you know, Dulce program. So there was already interest, and you know, like people like Bill Cooper or William Cooper, who was not known in the United States in 1990. Bill Cooper was already a well-known figure in Japanese TV, as far as UFO TVs, because he appeared in several of those programs. So, so you know, Japanese people were accustomed to the subject of UFOs from a very entertaining position, or you know, like an entertainment. I don't think the Japanese people really took everything so 100% seriously, but they thought it was a well-done program as far as entertainment is concerned.
Do you think, and this is a little bit off of the topic, but since I'm so interested, I get the impression, though, and there was even an anime like this where, you know, there was these aliens that were appearing and kind of fighting back and forth. And they were in the news, and people were kind of playing games, and the kids were playing video games, and there's conversation. Do you think that's real? Do you think that's real? And finally the government comes out and says, okay, what you guys saw is really aliens. And everybody's like, so what? We already knew they were probably here. It's no big deal. Do you think the Japanese culture is kind of more accepting that way? It won't be a big deal?
I think in certain sense you may be right, you know, because it's... I mean, the whole field of anime was actually developed in Japan. A lot of computer games that deals with aliens and so on were developed in Japan. So, in that sense, yeah, it's possible to a certain degree, but yeah, it's a good way to sensitize a segment of the population in the awareness that someday in the future this kind of thing may be possible.
Mm-hmm.
But at this point in time, yeah, my take on this whole thing is that unfortunately there are no irrefutable documentary evidence, tangible, physical, solid evidence that says that there is an underground alien base in Dulce, and much less, when it comes to UFOs in general, it still is, at least in the mainstream, it still seems to be in the fringe science category.
Mm-hmm. Now, you came across this from the documents from John Lear, and of course, he has a very elaborate story of an actual battle between humans and aliens under Dulce. Did you give that much credence when you ran across it that there could actually be extraterrestrials under there? And how do you feel about that possibility now?
Well, when I first read his hypothesis in 1988 about Dulce, I thought that it was just science fiction. In fact, even now, I tend to believe that this whole alien connection, whether it's in Area 51 or in Dulce, this so-called alien connection and alien presence is hard to believe.
Mm-hmm.
But I think my feeling is that this is maybe part of a orchestrated, brainwashing effort by a certain agency to detract attention away, or to bring a laughter curtain so that people will not scrutinize these areas.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, when you talk about things like the 1979, the so-called the conflict between the U.S. Delta forces and alien entities at Dulce Base, there's no tangible evidence for that, but most people think that Phil Schneider was the first one that started saying that, but actually it was Bob Lazar. In 1989, when Bob Lazar came out, he was the first person to ever insinuate that there was some kind of a confrontation between the U.S. Military and alien entities, and he did not specify where. He did not say it was at Groom Lake in Nevada or Dulce.
Mm-hmm.
But when Phil Schneider came out in 1995, he just started talking about the 1979 confrontation in Dulce, and one thing that I am not sure about Gabe Valdez is because Gabe Valdez did investigate the Phil Schneider's death, because
Right.
he has a lot of connections with law enforcement people and a coroner's office and so on, and in other states too, I'm sure. But he kind of was contacted by the wife, I think, of Phil Schneider to investigate her husband's death. So I am not sure if Gabe Valdez really had a lot of tangible evidence for any kind of a suspicion about Phil Schneider's death. As far as Phil Schneider, I cannot make any statement because I am not sure
Mm-hmm.
about that thing. And then another person that actually brought up and still continues to bring up this subject is Anthony Sanchez, who wrote a book called The UFO Highway. And Anthony Sanchez also brings up the 1979 confrontation in Dulce between the U.S. forces and the alien entities through an interview he allegedly did with a retired colonel in California. So this topic about the confrontation between the U.S. forces and alien entities in an underground base has become a popular topic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's one reason I like to research the Richard Dodie and to get back to the roots of all of these things, because if the roots of the legends don't pan out, then the kind of mythologies built on top of these dubious legends then start off in a troubled kind of area. And I think it's important for us to understand, and, you know, it's always important to know history so that we understand what has been established as truth or not, so we can get a better idea of what's going on.
Yeah, see? And, you know, when you're talking about Richard Dodie, and, you know, Richard Dodie and William Moore and others claim to have participated officially in that, you know, in the, what they call the manipulation that they were doing against Paul Benowitz, you know, but officially I have seen no documentary evidence in official capacity that William Moore and you know, Richard Dodie participated in official capacity in this manipulation, you know, on Paul Benowitz. It's their story.
That's a difficult one, too, because Richard Dodie, I mean, was an Air Force intelligence officer when he started his relationship and the disinformation with
William Moore.
With Moore and with Benowitz. However, like you said, his boss, the guy he said was orchestrating all of this, or the Falcon, this guy who is... It's not established for sure that person ever existed. And I never really thought too much about whether or not it was done on an official capacity till I interviewed Steve Alexander, and I asked him, or John Alexander, and I asked him about it. And he was the one who said, well, Dodie could have been working all on his own because he was doing illegal things if he was breaking into Benowitz's office, like he said, and the Air Force wouldn't have him do that. And that made me think and, you know, look harder in Greg Bishop's work and to determine, you know, was that actually done in an official capacity? And like you said, we don't really have evidence that says that for sure.
Exactly. I've listened to William Moore in the notorious 1989 MUFON meeting in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. And, you know, he claimed that he was a paid... informant for the with the CIA, and you know, that he participated officially, but there's no documentary evidence yet that has his name in any official documents, mm-hmm. even in you know, coming from the OSI in Kirtland and so on. It's just word of mouth, or you know, just a hearsay or his claim. So again, you never know the real truth, because Gabe Valdez knew Paul Benowitz, as well as, of course, Richard Dodie personally, but I don't think that Gabe Valdez has ever seen any official documents about the whole Paul Benowitz OSI you know, program or manipulation. It's just everything is just it's just claim. So my opinion is this, that Paul Benowitz may have known things, maybe independently of whether they try to manipulate him or not, and he did his own investigation in Dulce, because he also flew over there. He was a pilot, and he flew his Cessna aircraft a few times over Archuleta Mesa, and actually he claimed to have taken some interesting photos, and so I think it's very possible that Paul Benowitz pretended that he was being brainwashed, and in the meantime he did his own investigations despite the attempt to manipulate him. And so this is a very, very complicated situation. Yes, later on he became paranoid, and he was forced by his family to be institutionalized, and and then eventually he passed away. But you never know the real truth or the real mind of Paul Benowitz, because he's no longer here. Mm-hmm. The same thing with Gabe Valdez. All these people, you just don't know the real truth, because they took them with them by passing away.
Yeah. The only evidence, one I think interesting aspect that lends credence to Dodie working on an official capacity was the MJ-12 documents, which another thing, people take it for granted, how that came about. And interesting enough, William Moore and his colleagues received these documents. Then they received pressure from Dodie to release the documents. Then these documents, or some of them, were sent to Timothy Good in the UK, and he was pressured to put them out. For the longest time, he would not indicate who he was working with, and people suspected it was Dodie. And I guess fairly recently, at least for his last book, he told Richard Dolan that it was people who worked with Dodie who gave him the documents and wanted him to get them out. And these documents came out because of pressure from these unknown people.
Yeah. Yeah, Alejandro, this whole thing is just one of the most intriguing thing in ufology, is the whole William Moore, Richard Dodie, the whole Dulce situation, the whole, whole thing, even including Area 51, because it was William Moore who, along with Charles Berlitz, that really revived the whole Roswell story in 1980 with the publication of their book, the incident at Roswell, because most people had actually virtually forgotten about Roswell, and, until about 1980 when the book came out. I mean, there were independent researchers that continued to research about Roswell, after 1947, but most public at large just forgot about Roswell until about 1980 with this publication of the William Moore's book.
Right.
And so, this is just a very intriguing subject.
Yeah.
Intriguing.
It's certainly a giant ball of wax, and the reason I liked it, the reason I liked to pursue this area was because possible evidence of Air Force manipulation of data to hide UFO secrets. And that could be a part of it too, but definitely some disinformation, and the roots of a lot of the mythology that people base what they believe now on comes from a lot of this. So all of those reasons make it interesting, and it is so complicated.
It is very complicated, and, I think I still remember the 1989 tumultuous conference of MUFON in Las Vegas, in which Bill Cooper and, William Moore and others spoke for the first time, and, including John Lear, and, this whole Area 51 Dulce topic came out basically around the same time, into the public at large. And so sometimes I wonder if this could be the part of the campaign by part of the military to, deceive the, segment of UFO researchers,
Right. And if we're not careful to identify that and look for that, then we could be falling prey to and it's very possible, if not probable, I think it's probable, that a lot of mythology that these guys have created has become something that a lot of people have wasted a lot of time on because they've been taken off the track of the real stuff.
That's right. But in a sense, Alejandro, I think this research into this type of topic is, I think, fascinating, and probably it's part of a lesson that we can all learn from. And it's a lesson in psychology, and it's a lesson in social phenomena, and it's a lesson in philosophy. And so I think it could make certain persons more intelligent in a way to research on why people believe in this, and to research on why this kind of thing could be a definite tool for the intelligence community, And so I think, personally, I don't think it's a waste of time because if the purpose of the research is to find out the whys of things, I think we could learn from all of these things. But, once again, I think Gabe Valdez is, one of those personalities that have brought so much into this research. And, I'm very, very impressed with your, decision to interview him before he passed away.
Well, you know what? We're running out of time, and I think what you just said really sums up. I agree with you 100% that looking into all of those things is important for those reasons that you said. So I'm really happy that you did say all of that, and it's been a great, pleasure being able to talk to you today. I think we have to talk a lot more because I found really interesting the things you have to say. And again, thank you so much for getting me in contact with Gabe Valdez. I feel very honored and humbled by being able to have the opportunity to interview him and being one of the last people to interview him. And thank you for your kind words about the interview, because that's important as well, as that I was hopefully able to get a lot of information that was needed to get out before, unfortunately, we lost our opportunity to talk to him any further.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Alejandro.
Oh, I do have
keep
one
up
more
your
question.
Good work.
Thank you so much. Did he have children?
Yes, I believe he had two sons. One of the sons is in the State Patrol, and so I'm going to get as much information as possible.
Great.
In the as far as the arrangements are concerned and the funeral service is concerned. So I'll let you know.
Okay, and we should keep an eye on then Norio. I keep saying that.
Yes.
Norio Hayakawa, Hayakawa 2012.blogspot.com.
Yes.
And that's where people can get the information.
That's right.
Great. Well, thank you so much. I'll put that on a link because I'm going to post a little thing about Valdez in just a minute here, and I'll put that link in there so people can know where to keep up to date.
Thank you so much, Alejandro.
Thank you, and you have a great day, and thank you so much for joining us.
All right, what a cool dude he is. Very cool guy. And it is Norio, just so you know. It's Norio Hayakawa, which is just like it sounds, Hayakawa, Hayakawa. And you can just Google him, and you'll be able to find his site. So check that out, because he's going to have the latest information at OpenMinds.tv right now. I do have that up, the article with that link for Norio on there, so you can find out the latest about Gabe Valdez and all of the great work that he did. So thank you all for joining us. Be sure to check us out next week for another fabulous guest. And check out openminds.tv for your latest in UFO news. Talk to you next week, people.